All right, what we're going to do is finish out the week by finishing up the book of Second John. We'll start Third John on Monday. I'd invite you to read Second John again, but then move on to Third John. It's about the same length. And what I did is I did one more read of the book of Second John, again, all the way through, just to listen to what it had to say. And you know what struck me was why we engage with the scripture and why it's so powerful, and you always want to remind yourself of why you're doing it while you're trying to get into this pattern in your life of engaging with scripture on a regular basis. And one of the reasons that stood out to me was the Bible is my regular reminder, and a daily reminder, if I get into it daily, of what really is important. Because going all the way back to our very first principle, we said, if you'll remember that this is God breathed, the God of the universe wanted these words here. So all of the words matter, and all the concepts are things that I should take as important. And the thing about it is, in my normal life, I wouldn't ordinarily think these things are important if the Bible hadn't told me so. So what I need is a continual lift up to realize what's truly important according to Him, not according to me in my life, because I'm going to be surrounded by all kinds of voices telling me all kinds of things, pulling me in all kinds of directions. I think of this. It says, for many, in verse 7, for many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ is coming in the flesh. He's giving this warning, and what we know from background material, like the video I told you about by and some of the resources I had you look at, you always want to look at the background, who's being written to, why are they being written to. But there was a group of people who were going to house churches and preaching that Jesus really didn't come in a real, true human body. And so you'll see this in Second John. You see it in First John, that John's reacting to this. He's like, no, that's not true. Now, what's interesting about that is it sounded very spiritual to say that, because in ancient times especially, they thought of the body as a bad thing. They thought the body was the problem. Your spirit is what's the most important. And I've heard some Christians say that before too. But here, so they said that there's no way there's no way God would come and take on real human flesh that actually bled when you cut and you could stub his toe and stuff. He would never do something like that. And he's saying that is a false idea. Jesus did come in the flesh. The flesh, as we experience, it matters. Well, I wouldn't know that was that important if it wasn't for the Bible. And once I know it's important, just from that note, I can start wondering, why is it so important? Why does it matter? It affirms my humanness. It affirms my experience as a human being where we eat and drink and walk and talk and relate. But then he goes on to say, watch yourselves, verse 9, he says, anyone who goes too far and does not abide in the teaching of Christ does not have God. The one who abides in the teaching, he has both the Father and Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house, and do not give him a greeting. For the one who gives him a greeting participates in his evil deeds. So the original context where these deceivers were going out, and he's warning against them, but he's saying, listen, remember the teaching. And that's a good reminder that, you know what, and I got from 2 John big time, I need to be reminded that the fundamental teaching about who Jesus is, coming in the flesh, what he's called us to do, what he did for us on the cross, his resurrection from the dead, the teaching, that is what matters the most. And what the Bible does is remind me of that from different angles. 2 John sounds different from the book of Ephesians. 2 John sounds different from the book of Mark. It sounds different from different places, but it's giving me that message from a different angle in a new and fresh way. But what I'm reminded there is that the teaching about Jesus truly matters, and I need to care about it. And that's another inspiration for reading the Bible at all. It's bringing the teaching to me again and again and again, because I'm going to be pulled in all kinds of directions, and I need to know which voice to listen to. That's another reason why it's there. So what I learned from 2 John is just a recommitment to the fundamentals of the teaching of the faith, and then the truth, then walking it out, that's his other theme, in love. So what matters most? The truth about who God is and who Jesus is and having him, and walking that out in love. And that sounds like a simple message, but I need the daily reminder, And it is a simple message, but it's a daily message. And I need to hear that coming from him. And then I love the way it concludes. Though I have many things to write you, I don't want to use pen and ink, but I'm hoping to talk to you face to face. I love thinking of that. That was John, the original writer, and he's saying it's kind of cool that he wanted to see people face to face. That kind of elevates the importance of relationships in the early church. But I also like to hear of that's God speaking through John, and it's towards the end of the Bible, and him saying, you know what, I want you to have these words on paper, but someday, I want to see you face to face. We're gonna talk face to face. That's another reason why we ought to engage with the Bible, because I want to know who I'm going to see face to face through the letters that he's written, through the thoughts that he has. And then we need to remember that. That's a sentiment that God gives us. He wants to, he looks forward to the time when he's going to meet with us and talk with us and relate with us face to face. So let that be a reminder and encouragement to you, the things that matter, the things we have to look forward to, the hope that the scriptures bring, because it's all there. And if we hadn't been engaging with scripture, I have a feeling none of us would have paid much attention to 2 John and what he had to say. But what he had to say was pretty cool stuff. So we're going to start with 3 John on Monday. Looking forward to it. You get a chance, go ahead and read it. See you then.